Hi, Mr. Burns. I'm a big fan. I've met you before. I just heard on NPR that you're still accepting submissions for your Vietnam era film. I guess I should have written this down before I tried it. I came up with the word anti-war in 1966 when I was a freshman in high school, and I was taking Latin, and the teacher said the word anti means against or not, and I said, I'm anti-war. And she laughed and she said, no, that's not a word. And I said, well, yeah, I just made it up. And she said, well, don't use it. And there's no need for it because everybody's anti-war. And I said, if everybody were anti-war, we wouldn't have war. And I stick by that. I know that 95% of the world does not want war. And then I was writing at places. I came up with the peace sign, the circle, and the 4 lines. And I would draw that, and I would say anti-war, and I graffitied it all over the place. And it started to catch on. I would see it, in places where I didn't put it. And I also came up with that to mean peace. I had seen an old documentary on World War II, and after World War II was over, then people were holding up their fingers like this, and I was so young that I thought that must mean peace, but it meant victory. But same thing, right? You end up with peace. So that stuck. So my father told, and then it got to be a big thing because the priests were called in. I went to Catholic school, and the priests were called in to tell me not to use that word, anti-war. And I just would smile and, okay, and then go do what I want. And my father said, they called my house, I guess, and my father said, don't use that word, it's going to get you killed. And I said, why? And he said, because he said, anti-war is anti-American. And I thought, well, that can't be true. America has some of the best people in the world, we're always taught that. And not all of them want war. And he said, you listen to me, don't use that word. So I figured, well, if I had to stop using the word, I had to get the word out that there was such a thing as being against the war. And so I had been in a singing group called Up With People, and we would meet at the local college, Montclair State Teachers College it was back then, in New Jersey, and I would notice that on Saturdays the students would all hang out in the mall, they called it a mall, I think, but it was just a circle of where the buildings were, and bricks. They had bricks, like a big brick patio, and so one day I said, I'm going to have an anti-war rally against the war in Vietnam. And I guess now it was 1967, probably. Anyway, so I knew I couldn't ask my father to take me there, and I didn't realize you needed a permit to do something like that. So I just passed the word and put up some flyers the next time I was at the college that I was going to have a rally from 10 to 2 against the war in Vietnam. And I brought with me, I got a bunch of oak tag, which is that really heavy white, like cardboard stuff, and I got a bunch of fairing strips, little strips, and I brought a magic marker, and I brought some other things, a stapler, and I didn't bring tape. I knew it anyway. So I was busy the whole morning writing up signs that said "Make love, not war," and war is not healthy for children and other living things, and just anti-war and peace, and so as the students would come just to gather, most of them didn't even realize I had put up flyers, that we were asking me, what does anti-war mean? And I said, it means that you're against the war. And I'm against the war in Vietnam, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one. And the students were like, yeah, we don't want war, especially the boys. A lot of the boys, that's why college is now so damn expensive, because a lot of the boys were in college just to keep from being drafted. So this went on all morning, and then at around 2, one of the campus police said, where's your permit? And I said, I don't have one. And he said, well, you have to shut this down. Now, by that time, it had grown. The crowd had really grown. I would say like 300 people. And this is a small school. And so I was like, fine, I was tired. And I had to, they called my father. I would have walked back home. I had to walk. It was probably 3 or 4 miles to get there because I couldn't figure out how to get all my stuff onto the bus. And so I had to walk all the way there. And I guess I could have just thrown all the stuff out and taken the bus home, but the cops called my father, and when he got there, I heard one of the cops say, you must be so proud of her. She's great. I see her with the crowd, and she's really great. And I haven't seen her at this school before. And my father said, she doesn't go to this school. She goes to grammar school, I think he said. He probably didn't realize I had started high school. And on the way home, he said, I told you not to use that word. And I said, well, if I can't use the word, I want somebody else to use it. And he said, I was thinking of killing you when I picked you up, because I told you not to use that word, and you should not have used that word, and I'm your father. And it's always great to hear your father say he wanted to kill you. But when the cop saw him and said, you must be so proud of her, he thought, well, there must be something else. And he had heard other people say that he should be proud of me. And because I was a girl, he didn't even think I should have existed. He thought I should have been killed at birth. But that's a whole other story. And his father had told him, you should not listen to your girls. Girls make no sense, and don't listen to them. So he was all prepared to kill me when he picked me up, but decided, since the cop said you must be proud of her, he didn't do it. And then the word caught on pretty quickly. I'm pretty sure the New York Times did a little article on it. They called me and admonished me for not calling them. I should have, because we were really close to New York. Montclair is 20 minutes from New York. And so many schools started having anti-war rallies. And I'll tell you another story after this. So the long and short of it is, then when I was in college, when I was a freshman in college, there was an anti-war rally. Many more, I would usually speak and go on this rant against the war and why. we shouldn't be there. And so there was this big rally in Washington, D.C. It had to be 1 million people. And I spoke at that. And then there was a rally in Washington, D.C. on May the 1st, 1971. And I was asked to speak at that, and I got up, and as I was speaking, the microphone kept going off, and what was happening was the military was turning the mic off and unplugging things, and but people kept giving me a mic to use, a different mic, and so the military turned off the power to that whole area of Washington, D.C. So there was a blackout in Washington, D.C. because I was speaking at an anti-war rally, and that really pissed me off. So I thought, when this was May 1st rally, I said, you know what we should do is we should shut down Washington, and we should have a rally where we want to get arrested. You know, we won't get a permit, and the whole point would be to get arrested. And what we would do is stand in the streets and shut down the city. Now, this is because the military decided to not let me speak at the rally. Because when I spoke, you know, I made a lot of sense. Like, Abby Hoffman spoke, all he did was just spew profanities and say, you know, he doesn't want to go to war. But that's not a good reason to be anti-war. You know, you can do your own. Like Muhammad Ali didn't go, and he spent 3 years in jail. So you can do that. But there were all kinds of reasons why we shouldn't be there. It wasn't our war. It was a civil war. And why did we jump into a civil war halfway around the world in a place nobody even knew where Vietnam was? Nobody, before we went to war in Vietnam, nobody had ever even heard of Vietnam. So May 3rd came, which was the Monday after the rally, and enough of us stuck around to stop traffic. And what had happened in the meantime, Bella Abzug, who was a congresswoman from New Jersey, she went to that rally, to the May 1st rally, and she had known me. She had come to my first anti-war rally when I was a freshman in high school, and so she said on my behalf, you better listen to this girl because she means business. So Nixon decided to just do a preemptive strike and just arrest everybody. And most of the buildings decided that they were not going to have, you know, they were not going to even open because they didn't want people stuck in traffic trying to get to work. So I spent the night sleeping on a hillside near Georgetown. And when I got to Washington, to the main area where we were going to stop traffic, there was nobody was there. No, not a car in the streets. I mean, all the lights were cycling through, but there was no cars. So, and I heard later that was the way that the businessmen in the area were in solidarity with the anti-war movement. They decided they wouldn't even go to work, and that would be their contribution to the anti-war movement. And then I was arrested. We were walking down the street. We were just actually looking for breakfast because there was no traffic to stop. And a cop, they fingered me. They knew who I was, and they arrested me. And I said, what are the charges? And the cop says, eating a banana. So I said, it's not illegal. He said, it is for you today. And they brought me to the Redskins practice field. And then they brought us all to the armory so that they could process us out. Now, they had arrested 3,000 people, which was great. It was like such a phenomenal success with nobody getting hurt. And it was just a peaceful, kind of a crazy thing. And I only did it because they wouldn't let me speak. And I felt we had freedom of speech. So I think that's when the ACLU was born, and they put in a petition to not have the arrests on record, not to keep those arrests on record because they were illegal arrests, and that was it. That's my contribution to the war, or anti-war. So, peace.